Hello students, I hope all of you are doing well at home. Today for this session, I'll be taking up class 8 English. So, class 8 English and the name of the lesson is The Best Christmas Present in the World. So that is our lesson for today, and for this I want you to all have your textbooks with you, because many a times we'll be referring our textbooks, so it'll be good if you can have your textbooks with you. So let us begin with the lesson. The best Christmas present in the world. So this is the name of the lesson, and again this lesson is also divided into 3 parts, okay? In the first part we see the narrator. The first part is talking only about the narrator and an incident that happened with him, okay? He found out something. And in the second part of the lesson, this is a letter. So this is a letter written by Jim to Connie. Okay, so as we go on with the lesson, you will understand better. And for the third part of the lesson, the narrator goes in search of Connie, and finally they meet. So those are the 3 parts of the lesson. See, this lesson is divided into 3 parts for your better understanding. Okay, so before we begin the lesson, students, when I say the word war, W-A-R, war, what comes to your mind? So war will involve countries fighting with one another, and then there'll be lots of weapons, guns, isn't it? And then there'll be loss of lives, and then there'll be, in the fighting, one country will always win and the other will lose, isn't it? And you must have heard about the World War I and World War II that has already happened before. And this, as you go on to your classes 9, 10, 11, 12 like that, you will study more in detail in your history classes, okay? So this lesson also talks about a time during the World War I. Okay, so this is a story during the First World War, right? And one important thing that we can note when we're talking about war is that soldiers are involved, isn't it? So soldiers are involved and they leave behind their families, they leave behind their loved ones, and they will go and join the war, isn't it? So that is a common thing that happens in any side of the war, or be it in any country. And as the soldiers go and join the war, it is not sure, or we cannot predict that they'll come back alive, isn't it? Because maybe they'll die in the war, or maybe if some people are lucky, some soldiers are lucky, then they'll return back home safe. Right? So as you grow older, as you study more novels, or as you go into college, you'll understand more about how World War I and II has affected the world. Okay, so as we're trying to understand the lesson, the subject war is important in the lesson. Okay, and then this lesson, the 3 parts of the lesson, talks about 4 persons. 4 persons, okay. First one is the narrator. When I say the word narrator, it means that somebody who is telling the story. So there is someone, the name is not given, but the narrator is narrating the story. So that is the first person. The second person is Connie, a girl named Connie. So in the beginning, she was a girl, but as we move on into the story, we also see that she has now turned into a very old woman. Okay, and then the fourth one is Jim. So here, Jim McPherson. So he was a captain in the British Army. Okay, so Jim, and then Hans Wolf. Hans Wolf is another officer in the German Army. Okay, so 4 persons. Number 1 is the narrator, number 2 is Connie, and then third one is Jim, and then the fourth one is Hans Wolf. So there are many soldiers and other people also involved in the story, but those are the 4 main characters. Okay, and then another important thing that we can note in the story is that this the letter that we are going to go, as we go into the lesson, we will go in detail, but this talks about a certain letter written by Jim to Connie. Okay, so this letter was written on, letter from Jim to Connie, this letter was written on 26 December 1914. So when I say 26 December, it is right after Christmas, isn't it? And then the story also talks about Christmas. So this letter was written by Jim on 26 December. Okay, but it was received only on 25th January 1915. 25th January 1915. So between the time that the letter was written and it was received, there is a time gap, right? Why is it? Is because, see, this is the year 1914, so it is the olden times, we can say. So like now, there was no internet facility or technology was there, but it was not very fast. Okay, so that is why the letter took some time to reach the person who was sent to, right? So if you understand all those small details, then the lesson will be more clearer to you. And another important phrase in the lesson is no man's land. I'll just write it here. No man's land. So this is also an important phrase in the story. And students, if you go to page number 13 in your textbook, page number 13 in your textbook, then here you can see a picture, isn't it? And here in the picture, there are some soldiers, right? You see the green uniforms and the khaki uniform, right? So, in the middle, there is a free space, and then right opposite to one another, there is the fence, right? So one fence belongs to the British side, okay? And then the opposite fence belongs to the German side. And in the middle, there is a space. That space doesn't belong to the British side, neither the German side, okay? So that is known as no man's land, okay? The piece of land or the space which doesn't belong to any of the countries or any of the sides, that is known as no man's land. I'll give you an example. Have you heard the country North and South Korea? Yeah, so before the war, before First World War and Second World War happened, North Korea and South Korea was just one country only. It was just one country known as Korea, okay? And there were many wars after that because of economic and political reasons. When I say economic, it is to do with business, isn't it? So we have economic ties with different countries, isn't it? And because of political reasons also. When I say political, it might be some people or some countries want to follow democracy, another might want to follow dictatorship, or another want to follow capitalism maybe. So for political reasons, this country Korea got separated. Okay, so now this is known as North Korea and South Korea. Okay, so even now also it exists, you know, right? So many students might be knowing about South Korea, isn't it? Because we people and young students, they are interested in their culture, right? And their lifestyle also. So this now is known as North and South Korea because of the wars that happen. Okay, and right in the middle, it exists presently also. Right in the middle of North and South Korea, there is a certain zone. So in the opposite directions, they have the South Korean army and then the North Korean army who manages the different side for security reasons. So there are high fences and it is very dangerous and it is a high security zone. So the middle part of that security region is known as the demilitarized zone. Okay, so here the general public or the Korean citizens from both the countries, they are not allowed to go, right? So, and even in our country, India and Pakistan also, there is a certain border like that. So in every country, between every two countries, there is always a no man's land. Okay, so when we go into the lesson, there is indication of this no man's land also, right? So turn to your page number 9 in the textbook. Yeah, page number 9. And then this here talks about, the first part talks about the narrator. Okay, so the narrator, and then if you can please go to page number 10 once, students. So here in page number 10, you see a man, isn't it? And then you see a drawer also, a wooden furniture, right? And you can see that the man is taking out something and is very shocked, isn't it? So now let's go back to page number 9 again, and then let us begin the lesson. I spotted it in a junk shop in Bridport, a roll-up desk. The man said it was early 19th century and oak. So see, the man went to a junk shop. So junk shop is a place where you can find old furnitures. Okay, so if you want to get hold of old furnitures or antique items, then you go to a junk shop. So in our context, we can say the Lohatina shop, because whatever that we don't want, we give it to Lohatina, isn't it? So that is the junk shop, okay? And Bridport is a market town in Dorset, England. Okay, so Bridport, in the first line you can see the word Bridport, isn't it? So the junk shop was located in Bridport, okay? And then a roll-up desk, that means this the furniture was kind of like this one, this desk that you can see here. So it was a roll up, that means you can, in the lower part there were drawers also, and in the front part like this one, you can use it as a desk for study also. So in the junk shop there was this old furniture, and the owner of the junk shop said to the narrator that it was early 19th century furniture. Okay, so the narrator was really interested in that piece of desk, and then he took it home. Okay, so he took it home and he tried to restore it, it seems. Restore means, see, this is a new one, this desk, isn't it? But the furniture, the roll-up desk that the narrator bought, it was very old and in a bad condition. And then the woods were also coming out, being worn out, and then the paint was also almost gone. Okay, so what the narrator did was he tried to restore the old furniture. So he was trying to repair the furniture. Okay, and as he was trying to repair the furniture, I told you that there were some drawers in the lower part, right? So as he was opening the drawers, the upper portion of the drawer, it was coming out comfortably. But the last drawer in the bottom of the desk, it was very stubborn because it was stuck inside, and then it was very difficult to open. So the narrator was really trying to push and open it, okay? So as he was trying, and he applied all force to open the drawer. And as he opened the drawer, he could see that there was a secret chamber inside the drawer of the bottom desk. Okay, and as he opened the secret chamber, there was a letter. Okay, so you go to page number 10 of your textbook. See, in the middle portion of the paragraph, right opposite to the picture, see, it was Jim's last letter received January 25, 1915, to be buried with me when the time comes, right? So see, the letter was already received on 25th January 1915, long time back, isn't it? And then it was said that it was to be buried with that person. The person who got the letter had written that it was to be buried with him or her. That means the letter was very precious to that particular reader or the receiver, right? So it was very precious. And if you look into your textbook again, in the last paragraph, right before part 2, there is a certain paragraph, isn't it? So let's read that one. Inside the box, there was an envelope. The address read, Mrs. Jim McPherson, 12 Copper Beeches, Bridport, Dorset. I took out the letter and unfolded it. It was written in pencil and dated on top, December 26, 1914. So see, students, I was telling you that the letter was written on 26 December 1914, isn't it? And then it was received on 25th January 1915. So it means that Jim wrote the letter to Connie. Okay, so we can understand from this paragraph that Jim and Connie, they were husband and wife. Okay, that is why the letter was addressed as Mrs. Jim McPherson, isn't it? So Jim's wife, Mrs. McPherson, and her nickname is Connie, remember? Okay, so it was written like that. And now, the narrator was a bit hesitant to open the letter, okay, because it was not his letter, isn't it? But again, he was very curious. He became very anxious and restless to take out the envelope and read it. Okay, so out of curiosity, he just took out the letter and started reading it. Right. So now, let's go back to the second part of the lesson. That is in page. It starts from page number 10, isn't it? So here, dearest Connie, I write to you in much happier frame of mind because something wonderful has just happened that I must tell you about at once. We were all standing to in our churches yesterday morning, Christmas morning. It was crisp and quiet all about, as beautiful a morning as I've ever seen, as cold and frosty as a Christmas morning should be. So now the letter is beginning, okay? Jim writing the letter to Connie, isn't it? And Jim is saying in the beginning of the letter, Jim is telling Connie that, I'm very happy because it is Christmas time. And Connie, let me tell you about an incident that happened here in the camp. It is very interesting, so I'm going to tell you. And I also want to tell you that the weather is very cold and it is very frosty. So this is December time, isn't it? When the letter was written. So obviously, and in the European countries, it snows a lot, isn't it? So that is why Jim is telling Connie that the weather is very cold and frosty, right? And now, in the letter is very important because it is the last letter written by Jim to Connie. And Jim, he is a captain of the British side during the war. So basically, this letter was written by Jim during the war. Okay. Now, let us go into the second paragraph. Here, the middle portion. Then they were calling out to us from across no man's land. See, I told you about no man's land, isn't it? So, from across no man's land, Happy Christmas, Tommy, Happy Christmas. So, see, now again, let's go back to page number 13. In the picture, you can see, right? So, that is the British side and the German side. Okay, so the middle portion, like I told you earlier, is the no man's land. And from the no man's land, the Germans were shouting to the British soldiers, "Happy Christmas, Tommy." And when I say the word Tommy, here, when I say the word Tommy, it is an indication that it is a nickname given to the British soldiers, okay? I'll give you an example. For the Lotha people, they call the young ones, the young boys as Ango, isn't it? And for the Angamis, new, like that, isn't it? So it is called out of love, isn't it? So same here. Tommy means the British soldiers, nickname given to the British soldiers. Okay, and for the German side, they were known as Fritz. All the soldiers, they had a nickname called Fritz, right? So Tommy and Fritz. So from the fences, they were calling out to one another, "Tommy, happy Christmas," like that, because it was the Christmas morning, remember. So see, the British and the German side, they are the enemies, isn't it? Students, they are the enemies, but during that Christmas time, they all shed their weapons, they all shed their hatred for one another. They were not fighting against one another on that Christmas morning. Okay, so they were, greeting one another. Let's go back to page number 11, students. And in the middle of that same paragraph, "Don't shout, lads," someone shouted, and no one did. Then there was another Fritz up on the parapet, and another, "Keep your heads down," I told them. "It's a trick," but it wasn't. So see, this particular lines is also important, because see, they were shouting, "Happy Christmas, Happy Christmas." The German soldiers were shouting like that, isn't it? But first, initially in the beginning, the British side, they thought that it was a trick to lure the British soldiers so that they can kill them. Okay, so that is why Fritz, Jim McPherson, he's the captain of the British side, isn't it? So all the soldiers were under him. So he was telling his soldiers not to go and greet them, because it might be a trick and they might get killed, okay? But actually, it was not a trick. It was just pure simple honesty, because they really wanted to greet them for Christmas, okay? Now, let's go back to the next paragraph. See, in the next paragraph, the second line, "It is Christmas Day, Tommy. We have such snaps, we have sausage. We meet you?" Yes. By this time, there were dozens of them walking towards us across no man's land, and not a rifle between them. So see, as they were greeting one another, they were saying that, "We have got sausages, and we have got cakes and different cookies also." So, trying to attract the British soldiers, okay? And we all celebrate Christmas, isn't it? So in the Christmas time, we bake cakes, and then we make donuts also, and then we make different dishes, isn't it? And then we share it with our family, our loved ones, our neighbors, isn't it? So here, for the two sides of the soldiers on the front line, remember, they were fighting against one another. So they had no families, they were far away from their families. So what they did was, they were trying to talk with one another, okay? So one by one, it seems, the German soldiers, they were coming to the British side, and especially to the no man's area, the free space, okay? So they were coming, and they were greeting one another, right? So that is how they started talking with one another, right? And in that same paragraph, the last portion, the fourth line, you can see gray coats, khaki coats meeting in the middle, right? So this phrase, students, this phrase is so symbolic, because see, gray coats, khaki coats meeting in the middle. So I told you that the middle part is the no man's land, right? That means it was a free zone. So gray coats and khaki coats, they were meeting. That means the opposite side of one another, they were meeting in the middle ground. That means in the middle ground, in the no man's land, it was as if they were like friends, okay? They were free from the fightings, they were free from the war. And when you go to the next paragraph, the third line, Hans Wolf, he said, gripping my hand warmly and holding it. I am from Dusseldorf. I play the cello in the orchestra. Happy Christmas. So see, Hans Wolf, he is the leader or the captain of the German side, right? So he came and greeted Captain Jim, okay? And then he was, putting forward his hand and he was saying, Hans Wolf is my name. And then I'm from Dusseldorf. It's a place in Germany, okay? And then he said that he played the cello in the orchestra. So cello is a musical instrument. And orchestra means there are many musicians will come together and they'll play the violin, the piano, the cello, all together, and it produces wonderful sound, isn't it? You must have heard. So that is orchestra, okay? So Hans Wolf, he was telling Jim that before he joined the army, before he joined the war, he was a musician. That means he's starting to introduce himself to Jim, okay? And then after that, Jim also said, the next page number 12, the first paragraph, Captain Jim Macpherson, I replied, and a happy Christmas to you too. I am a school teacher from Dorset in the west of England. So after Hans Wolf introduced himself, Captain Jim also said that my name is Jim Macpherson, and then happy Christmas to you too. And then before he joined the war, he was a school teacher, it seems. And then he was from a place called Dorset in West England. Okay. Now, let's look into the next paragraph. The next paragraph in page 12. That paragraph, the middle portion, is a little long, isn't it? So when you look into this paragraph, in your free time, you can read this text. As they have introduced themselves, now they're starting to talk with one another, okay? And we all know that Hans Wolf was a German, right? So in the country of Germany, they speak the German language, isn't it? And for the British, they'll speak English, right? So Hans Wolf was a German, but Jim could see that he was very good in speaking English also, okay? And Hans Wolf also told Jim that his favorite author is Thomas Hardy, okay? So Thomas Hardy is an English poet and novelist. Okay, so Hans Wolf was telling Jim that Thomas Hardy is his favorite author, and his favorite book is Far from the Madding Crowd. See, it's given in italics, isn't it? You can underline that one. Far from the Madding Crowd. This is a novel written by Thomas Hardy. Okay. So his favorite book was that. And as they were speaking with one another, Hans Wolf also told Captain Jim that he had a wife. That means he's married. Okay. And then they had a small baby daughter who was 6 months old. So see, now, students, you can imagine the condition, the seriousness of the condition. The war was going on, so he had no option left but to leave behind his small baby and wife and then join the war. So see, after joining the war, it is not sure whether he will make home alive or dead, isn't it? So very sad indeed, right? And as they were also discussing, if you look into that big paragraph, the last portion, he thought the marzipan was the best he had ever tasted. See, it was Christmas time, so Connie had baked a cake for Jim and then sent it to him. Okay, so lucky for Jim that he got the cake on time. So Jim got the cake and then he was sharing it with Hans Wolf now, okay? And then in the letter, Jim was even telling Connie that, the cake that you have made and the marzipan is a sweet covering on a cake made from sugar, eggs, and almonds. So a special kind of dish or a special kind of recipe that Connie made for Jim. Okay, so they were enjoying, they were sharing all the eatable things that they had with one another, right? So page number 12, the paragraph that we just read now. So that will be, for today we will study up to that much, and for the remaining part of the lesson, we will continue tomorrow or in the next class. Okay. So as a recapitulation of the lesson that we have done today, we have done the lesson, the best Christmas present in the world, isn't it? And we also understood that there was war going on. There were the British side and the German side, and then Jim and Hans Wolf, they were enemies. They were fighting against one another, but they became friends, right? So that is all for today. And for the remaining part of the lesson, students, I want you to tune in even in the next class also, so that we can complete the lesson and you'll be able to understand better. Thank you.